Hello again, everyone. And this video is another short one about Project 2025 and clean water. Another one that affects everybody, even though many people think that it is just for the LGBTQIA plus community. There are a number of recommendations that have a serious impact on the environment and rivers and clean water. On the positive side, there are a few suggestions for infrastructure investment that would likely be a good thing for rivers. Unfortunately, the vast majority of the changes the blueprint proposes would have a negative impact on rivers. In addition to broad cuts within the Department of Agriculture, the Forest Service, and the Department of Energy, among other agencies, there are specific changes called out that will have significant repercussions for rivers. 1. Within the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPH, it suggests eliminating the Office of Environmental Justice and External Civil Rights, Office of Enforcement and Compliance Assistance, and the Office of Public Engagement of Environmental Affairs. The plan also recommends to review grant programs to ensure that taxpayer funds go to organizations focused on tangible environmental improvements free from political affiliation. Project 2025 also recommends a Day 1 executive order to stop all grants to advocacy groups. And on water, specifically, Project 2025 recommends codifying a navigable water clause to respect private property rights. This means that federal funding currently going to conservation organizations like American Rivers or those on the ground removing dams to restore rivers could be held up or eliminated. Weakening federal safeguards from clean water means that it will be up to the state to decide, meaning access to clean water will depend on the politics of one state, not necessarily what is needed for healthy communities or ecosystems. And because rivers don't stop at state borders, pollution could increase everywhere. Many federal safeguards currently in place to protect rivers and clean water, especially in communities that have traditionally been underserved due to their race, culture, or income makeup, will no longer be enforced. Number 2. Project 2025 suggests lifting the ban on fossil fuel extraction on federal lands, which would put countless miles of rivers and streams at risk. Putting climate change concerns aside for the moment, with any new fossil fuel extraction, the risk of accidents, leaks, and spills goes up considerably. And as we have seen numerous times before, one accident can damage a river and clean water supply for decades. Further, the headwaters of many rivers in the U.S. are found on national public land. More pollution means more risk to the literal places where rivers are born, and that will have impacts to everyone who uses it as a water source. Number 3, Project 2025 calls for dismantling of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, known as NOAA, by moving some responsibilities to other agencies and prioritizing other duties. The National Marine Fisheries Service would be streamlined and some duties transferred to the Fish and Wildlife Services and the America the Beautiful and 30x30 programs withdrawn. Without a central agency monitoring our climate and bad weather and informing the many parts of our government that need that data, we run the risk of being unprepared for the next hurricane, storm, flood, or drought. We already know that climate change impacts every drop of water in our lives. Ignoring this fact threatens our safety and the way of life on Earth. Number 4. With the Department of Energy, DOE, Project 2025 reinforces support for fossil fuels by encouraging more extractions and streamlining public safeguards. We already know that our reliance on fossil fuels will continue to warm our world and intensify floods and droughts. With more drilling and fewer safeguards, threats to rivers and their wildlife and communities will increase. Number 5. The plan recommends moving the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, from the Department of Homeland Security, DHS, to the Department of Interior or Department of Transportation, and suggests phasing out programs like the National Flood Insurance Program, NFIP, to private insurance. Disaster preparedness grants would be changed to only go to states, NGOs. Tribal governments and localities would need to go through state governments for funds. As floods become more frequent and severe, FEMA and the resources it provides becomes more and more vital. Moving these critical emergency response tools away from an agency that already has the national infrastructure set up to respond when needed would be unnecessarily putting lives at risk. Eliminating federal support programs in favor of state, or even worse, private control assures the same vulnerable communities that historically have suffered the most will continue to be underserved and will have a harder time recovering from that disaster. So there you go. A little bit on how Project 2025 is going to affect our world as we know it. The clean water system, the rivers, the formation, all the storms, everything that we're facing in the future. Project 2025 is determined to make our lives harder and unsafer while the rich keeps getting richer. Have a good day, everybody.